Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Everybody Eats show. So this is actually take 2 of this episode. Since the last time we did it, I didn't press record, so it happens, right? We say we have one goof a day, meaning one mistake a day, and that was our mistake. Just didn't press record after a really good episode. But everything happens for a reason. That's what we said last time too, right?
That's right.
Everything happens for a reason, right?
Get to connect in person.
Exactly.
So it's all good.
Exactly, right? We have a better setup this time, all that good stuff. So we're going to go into today's episode. Before we start, make sure that you're checking us out on all platforms. Everybody Eats Show on Instagram, on TikTok, EVE_show on Twitter, our YouTube channel, Everybody Eats Show. Make sure that you're checking us out. That's where we have our 101 classes. We have our business tax 101 class by Joanne Marius, who was one of our former guests. It's up there on our YouTube channel, and we're looking to do a credit one soon. So hopefully by the time this comes out, that will be in the works. So make sure you're checking us out on YouTube. Let's get into today's episode, right? So today we are joined with Mr. Vernon Lee Jr., all right? So thank you again for, you just did the drive, right? So this is why I love our guests, because they put in the effort.
That's right.
Just did a drive,
Yeah.
touchdown, fresh off the road, touchdown in Hampton, and then he's like, oh, okay, we can have time to do an episode with you guys. So we really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day, busy schedule. So if you can introduce yourself for the people, let them know what do you do, who you are, and then we'll get this conversation rolling.
No, again, thanks for having me. You guys are doing some great work in the community and got a great audience. And so happy to be here and be able to share a little bit of my story. So Vernon Lee, originally from Hampton, VA, 757 guy, although the area code was different when I was growing up here. But when I left Hampton, I went to Hampton High, played football at Russell, very active in sports. Went to Howard undergrad, later University of Dayton for grad school. But while I was at Howard, I was part of the Air Force ROTC program. I'd grown up in Hampton, Langley Air Force Base. My dream was actually to fly jets. Like, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. There are a number of reasons that didn't happen, one of which was me having to get glasses and not being able to compete for a pilot slot, unfortunately. But I still wanted to be an Air Force officer. I was able to go on active duty, spent 6 years in the Air Force, doing a number of things which we could get into a little bit later, but primarily been a project manager in the acquisition career field. That was my first exposure to technology. After I got out of the Air Force, I was stationed in LA at the time, relocated to the DC area, to Northern Virginia. I was a consultant with PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, then PricewaterhouseCoopers, was a director there, got exposed to the venture capital space.
Yeah.
Left PwC, started my own firm, business advisory firm called Brightwood Management Partners. And then later, my current firm, the Marathon Fund, we have a venture capital fund focused on investing in early stage companies, particularly that are underrepresented. So Black, Latinx, disabled, LGBTQ, and veteran entrepreneurs. And that's what we're focused on now in terms of early stage investing.
Got it. So, like we said, there's a lot to unpack over there, right? You got a lot of different journeys. So, first you said Air Force, right? So last time we got a little bit more in depth into that project management space. So we don't have to get as in depth, but I would like you to kind of speak more about how that came about. I know you said you had a mentor that kind of helped you into that space. Could you speak more about how that experience shaped you and what you learned throughout that journey of project management?
Yeah, definitely. So I was a business major undergrad. We didn't necessarily focus on project management. So it wasn't until I got in the Air Force, as being part of this acquisition career field, that the discipline of project management and working on these projects were very critical. And so initially I was actually a financial manager, but I had a mentor, this amazing woman that saw a lot in me, saw how hard I was working, and basically made me her deputy program manager or project manager at the time. So I did go through some formal classes, getting certifications and all of that stuff. But the level of discipline that's required to, when you're working on multi-million-dollar projects, you've got to have processes and a certain level of discipline to manage through that. And so that was my foundation, essentially. So, and I got that while I was in the Air Force. And then subsequently, future projects that I worked on, satellites, that was the technology sort of exposure that I got as a project manager, but yet wasn't an engineer or a developer, but I had to understand enough of that as a project manager
for sure. So
I just want to backtrack real quick. So you mentioned you did sports growing up, high school, wrestling, football, and going into ROTC in at Howard. Sorry. Obviously, you mentioned discipline a lot. How do you keep that going? You know, it's not easy. I did sports in high school growing up. You know, there are times where I just want to. I'm sure you know may have slacked a little bit, but obviously keeping that going through every point in your life, that's not easy. So how do you keep that like fire going? I don't think we asked this last time.
No, I don't think we got into that. I think for me, one of the things I draw upon, and I think we talked about before, like you draw upon certain experiences that you have, again, professionally, education, family, and you try and draw on things that it can be positive, but sometimes it can be negative. I think the biggest thing for me, my love for sports, particularly football. I was fortunate to be on some really good teams, and particularly in high school. We went to the state championship every year. We won 2. We were nationally ranked. But all of the hard work, being able to see from the beginning, off season to preparation, goal setting, working as a team, again, the ups and downs and all the things that come along with that, and then being able to see, the success at the end of the year. I really grasped onto that, like, wow, look, if you do follow a certain plan and a path, there's a level of success you can have. So I think that was the underpinning foundation for me, and using sports as this metaphor for life, which, and I know we'll talk about Hampton Roads Youth Foundation in a bit, but that was something that my co-founder, Carl Francis, and I had a similar mindset around sports being this area of discipline. So for me, the love of sports, I still draw upon that, and that experience, again, being at Hampton High, I've kind of taken that all the way through, even as an Air Force officer, his expectations that were required to be an Air Force officer, and that discipline, it just started becoming, I found it found me, and it was just sort of a natural connection. Same thing being a consultant, certain level of discipline that you have to advise clients or recognize patterns and things. I just had enough of success associated with that. Like, hey, this discipline, it works for me. That foundational sort of mindset was helpful.
Now, would you say part of that, you mentioned the planning process. So is that a big thing for you? How do you like being where you are now? Do you feel, I'm sure growing up you had to be a part of that process. I'm sure you had to feel like you agreed with what was going on, like, and you could see yourself in that. So is that something really that matters most to you in terms of now going on to projects and working in Hampton Roads Youth Foundation? The plan that they have set out, is that something that really matters to you?
Yeah, I think so, because some of the things we talk about, and you hear coaches talk about this in all realms about execution. And so from a fund standpoint, when we meet with entrepreneurs and we're evaluating whether it's a good investment or not, or and managing through that, not just being an investor, but also being value add and advisor, most entrepreneurs fail because of a lack of execution and consistent execution.
Did you realize that, at a younger age or as you got older?
I realized
through sports
I recognize it at an early age through sports,
right?
Because in practice, if you're not executing on the plan that the coaches laid out, you saw the result of that. I mean, there was just there were games we lost or games that mistakes that were made because of lack of discipline. And again, literally, I could hear. I was just very fortunate to have some really amazing coaches, Mike Smith, Alice Mann, and Danny Mitchell, that always talked about discipline, like a lot of the discipline that you have to have in the off season. In the will, I think Lombardi said something about it's not the will to win, but the will to prepare to win, right? So that's a different mindset in terms of discipline, execution, and doing it on a consistent basis. And one thing, I've had people that work for me, both in the Air Force and active duty as consultants and in other facets of life, about being consistent and consistent execution. Because you could be great for 2 weeks, and then if you totally drop off the next week, you make yourself vulnerable. There's risks and things of that. And again, we're all human. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's going to be pivots and turns and things that happen. But if you have a mindset of a certain level of discipline and milestone setting and consistent execution, I have found through my career as a consultant, as an investor, and working with a lot of entrepreneurs, that they're the ones that end up being most successful because people have all great ideas all the time, or a passion, or I got a dream to do. It's like, yeah, but the people that get out there and hustle and execute on day to day, and not distracted by all the other things that are around them, then those are people that typically, sort of rise and are able to differentiate themselves. But yes, for me, it kind of came to me naturally. I drew upon that from sports and my experience in football, in high school.
For sure. That execution piece, that really touches, because I've said this to Eden a few times. Like, even myself, I have a lot of ideas, right? And like with the podcast, when it comes to the podcast, when it comes to, we have a clothing line too. Like, I'm pretty good when it comes to generating ideas, but I do need help when it comes to executing them, right? Because it's like, oh, I have a great I have a great idea for design. I have a great idea for this type of content. I have a great idea for how we should do this. But then it's like, all right, cool. How do we actually put that into action, right? And it's like, and that's where me studying project management right now, that's where like those classes and just learning it has really helped me, because it's like day one, it was like, hey, like the first thing to project management is like knowing how to plan, right? Like, it's like, so it was like, all right, cool. For me personally, I love the end result. I love to kind of like just hurry up and get it done. And it's like, all right, no, these are the actionable items. These are the steps that you need to take in order to make your idea into reality, right? To execute it. So that's just something I'm practicing, learning through the podcast.
And it's hard, by the way. It's not easy.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm saying it like, and again, some people, I think we all have certain traits. And like
some people are more naturally gifted.
Or some of these other, trait analysis, self-assessment. Like we all have. I forget, there was another one I did as part of an executive group a couple of years ago, but it talks about how we learn. Yeah. Like some people are analytical thinkers. Some people are learn by actually doing. Yeah. Some learn by reading. Others are more visual. Like we're all different type of learners. Yeah. And we have this self-awareness about yourself. We can identify that. I gotta find which self-assess.
Please, I'd love to take that.
Yeah, I gotta find it, because even as a senior executive, that one was a little bit different from Myers-Briggs. Although Myers-Briggs was also good because it can determine, are you an introvert versus extrovert? Yeah. Because how you learn and how you recover, like your energy. There are people that are very good in the room, right? And people draw to them, but they are actually introverts. But when they get on stage or in certain environments, they're extroverts. Like they project this, outward. But the time to recover, they have to be by themselves really to recover, because of energy.
That one right there.
A lot of energy. And so when you learn that about yourself, and again for your audience and others, and there's a core part of who we are as learners. Yeah. But the other assessment, I can't remember. I'm an extrovert. Like I can give energy, and then I feed off the energy from other people. But there are periods the way I learn may be different from the way you learn. Yeah. So I'm using that as an example around project management. Some people are more disciplined naturally. Yeah. To say, I want to get into the details of how I'm gonna get, but they can't. They have a difficult time strategically thinking or coming up with a vision of something. But if you give them that goal, they'll execute the hell out of it. Yeah. But then other people that are like, hey, I'm more creative. And so when you have a business partner or others around you, or you hire people and advisors, you want to kind of create this, again, it's just like a basketball team of fours, and people play different roles. And when you realize that and have that self-awareness, it'll help you also, like, I'm not that great at project management, but I need to take a class, so I need to have people around me that can execute better, and then you can partner and figure out a way to for everybody to win.
For sure, it's growing out that team, like you said, and we're learning that too. It's just, and that's the great part. It's that self-awareness, growing out that team, seeing like, okay, I can specialize in this area. You can go handle this area. You can go handle that, and together, we'll move that goal forward. So that's your time in the Air Force, and then we have Hampton Roads Youth Foundation, right? So, can you explain what it is first, and then what is the story behind it?
Yep, so the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation was started by my co-founder, Carl Francis Jr., from Hampton. We went to Bravo High School. I went to Hampton. We went to Bethel.
Okay.
And so he had an idea when he first started working for the NFL Players Association to have a free football camp in Hampton, bring back a number of the NFL players that were from the area to serve as role models and counselors, essentially, for some of the area youth. And at the time, I was in the Air Force Station in LA.
Okay.
And there's some other reasons he called me, which I had done some other entrepreneurial related endeavors by promoting parties when I was at Howard, but doing it in Hampton.
Hustle man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I did some entrepreneurial things, and again, the organizing, right, and the execution part of things. So I called my dad after I talked to Carl about, hey, what do you think about us doing this camp? He was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Because at that point in time, it's very different from today, where there's 7-on-7 passing camps, there are combines, clinics, like everywhere. When we started this in 1996, there was none of that existed.
Sorry, none in Virginia or none like?
There were, in the state of Virginia, the only other camp which started a year before ours was at William and Mary.
Okay.
They had a camp in partnership with Nike, and they brought in, they were bringing 2 NFL players per year as part of it, and they ran that for probably 20-something years. So at that point, in the state of Virginia, that was the only other camp football.
Not much competition.
At that point. Now, Coach Tommy Remus Sr., who legend, longtime coach, had played professionally. He had did a camp, I think back in the 70s, if I recall, and then maybe in terms of like bringing NFL players, and then subsequently in the 90s he had did another one. But so when we started ours, and he was part of us advising us, helping us get started with this one. So the whole focus was have a free football camp, bring back a bunch of NFL guys, and again, you got to understand the market and the timing of things also, right, with any endeavor. At that time, we had a bunch of NFL guys, even now, right, that were in the league, but a lot of them were some of our homeboys, guys we had played against. We were growing up. Dwight Hollier, I think was with the Dolphins at the time. Kwame Lassiter was with the Arizona Cardinals. Terry Kirby, I think, was with the Dolphins. Mike Husted was with Tampa Bay. Now Reggie Langhorne had just finished with the Cleveland Browns. Ty Kelly was with the San Francisco 49ers. Martin Mayhew, who was with the Washington football team at the time, came down. So we had this group of peers, so to speak, that kicked that off. And it went well. We had 500 kids out at Darling Stadium in Hampton. Great community support, coaches in the area, parents, and they were all like, hey, you got to do another one next year. And so it was never the plan. We never had a conversation about, hey, for the next 25 years, let's do football camps.
This is it.
Let's just do one, and we're giving back. And keep in mind, we both live in Northern Virginia, so we're not even from the area. Our families sit here. But this community raised us and poured so much into us. We wanted to give back. We're in a position to try and do something. So 1 year turned into 2, and then after 2, we're like, maybe we'll do 5. And it just, again, honestly, just kept going. We've been very blessed with sponsors, community support. It's just been, it's been really good. But that was not the plan. So we started with free football camps, basic skills, offensive, defensive skill on the field. But a part of the camp, we will always have a chat session with the players after the camp, and we'd feed them free lunch. But that part of the camp around good decision making, academic excellence, really focusing on off the field things was part of this post camp chat. And so football was like the hook to bring them in. But we just found for those players, being their authentic self and giving of their story where they may have made mistakes or could have done things better was just amazing. It was way better than on the field, drills and that sort of thing. And I think that resonated with the kids.
That's that human interaction.
Absolutely. It was.
You humanize them, for the kids and everything.
And that's exactly, it's funny because, Mike Tomlin, who's, one of our partners in this thing, he talks about that oftentimes when he's speaking to the kids, like, hey, I'm not an alien. Like, I'm from right here. I was at Pine. I lived in Pine Chapel and some other areas don't exist now. But like I'm from. I know these. I'm from the same area, and that was part of the message that we wanted to convey to the kids. But beyond that, we started doing scholarships. We have fundraising events. We start giving away scholarships each year. We start partnering with the local food bank to bring awareness. We started doing a leadership symposium to totally focus on off the field activities and workshops around mental health, leadership development, law enforcement interactions. So the foundation expanded to start doing some of these other things and really beyond just on the field stuff.
Yeah. So when it comes to like the post game chat, right? Or like the post practice chat, it sounds like kind of like you said, it's like humanizing them. The first thing that kind of comes to my head is like, all right, realistically, only a small number will actually make it to the league, right? However, it's those conversations that will kind of like stick forever, so to speak, or those like real interactions that are like gonna have a long lasting impact. So I guess what would you say is like your favorite part about that camp, or like favorite thing that maybe it's like, what do you look forward to? Like, I want them to get this out of it after this week or weekend or whatever you say.
It's definitely the interactions in the chat session. And again, we tell the message, all the statistics around, hey, 1% might make it, you know. But the biggest message is, if you love this game, allow this game to give you an opportunity to get a college education. That is really one of the driving forces of the conversation. But in order to do that, you also have to meet certain academic requirements. And so use this as an opportunity. If you love the game, let the game love you, and then get a free education. And whether you go to the league or not, like this camp is not about preparing you to play in the National Football League.
Yeah.
It's to try and prepare you for life.
Yeah.
But use sports as that vehicle. And that's the biggest message. Like we're always trying to drive that home. Some get it, some don't. I've got so many stories, Carl and I and others. I've been in the parking lot at Target. I've been at Busch Gardens, and there's a kid over the years, like just totally random, that has come up to me and said, "Hey, don't you do that football camp with the NFL guys?" And like, oh my God, it motivated me. I started working harder in the classroom, and honestly, this is why like we're now in year 26 hearing this just organic, random being somewhere, hearing that type of feedback. So absolutely, the message is around use sport. Again, sports is a metaphor for life. Like use sports as a way as a launching pad to get your education, and then be a great entrepreneur or doctor or attorney or whatever it is you might end up pursuing.
Yeah, for sure. That reminds me of the episode we did with Jason Ford. Rest in peace. He was one of our guests who recently passed, but he ran an AAU basketball camp up in Harlem or the Bronx.
PSA Cardinals.
PSA Cardinals. So I think it's in the Bronx. Yeah. But he ran AAU basketball camp, very similar, coaching high school and junior high school students, preparing them again, using sports for a metaphor for life, and things like that. So I love seeing that message being consistent, like across coaches and that type of field.
Yeah, and the other part, that just sparked one other thing that is interesting, because the messages that these players are conveying is the same stuff that our parents or uncle or teacher or deacon in the church. It's the same message, but sometimes depending on who.
You just have to hear from
Who
someone.
and how.
You hear from somebody else.
Exactly.
I told them the exact same
No,
thing.
and it's really crazy because it's not the exact same example, but I'm sure you hear about NFTs and whatnot, right? The biggest thing about that is no one knows what the heck they are. Nobody has an accurate definition. So Bensky and I, we have we're not experts or anything, but we have our definition, and we saw a TikTok that was shared about Logan Paul explaining what an NFT was, and he said absolutely nothing. And he gave a definition, maybe the first two sentences he must have read off somewhere, and then after that he just started chatting. And someone said, "Oh, this is the best definition I've ever heard," and it just really dawned on me that I don't know, you just need to hear it from someone else that is either at your level or someone you respect or whatever. It just doesn't matter how, but everybody digests information differently. And that was just the first time I really ever stuck with me. So obviously hearing it from,
or for someone that's well known that's saying absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
But they're having this influence. It's like they didn't say anything, but
Exactly.
Say
Yeah.
anything. But I actually didn't learn anything, but it was cool seeing them.
Yeah,
exactly. No, but yeah, definitely hearing it from an NFL player will definitely might be sinking.
And we interact with the high school coaches, like, hey, what's some things
yeah.
that are going on? I mean, some years, like, gang violence was like a big thing for even a lot of the high school student athletes. They were being recruited in gangs. Some other years, high homicide rates. So a lot of kids were dealing with mental wellness challenges because a lot of so we try and focus the theme in some way, kind of what's going on in the community at the time, for whether it's the coaches we have, players, and even we got guys from the area that are NFL executives and scouts and assistant GMs and stuff like that.
So you didn't start off obviously like that. So when did you realize? I asked this before, but when did you realize this was like you're built for this, for the community, to help the community? When did you? Glad you threw that in there. When did you start deciding to gear it more towards what was going on in the community and how to do all that? I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I know exactly. I think one of the coaches put us to the side and actually said, "Hey, here's what's going on." And keep in mind, and we've had participants in the camp. All over Virginia. We say Hampton Roads, but we from all over. But it was a couple of coaches that put us aside and said, "Hey, can you make sure Coach mentions this thing?" And that's what kind of sparked. And again, years ago, to just like, hey, some of our kids are struggling academically. Like, hey, can you really, really drive on the academic part? Or there was a lot of things were happening with recruiting and kids all thinking they're Division I.
Dang.
Players, And so they talked about that, like, hey, can you focus on, like, hey, keeping all your options open? And so normally the coaches would just kind of pull us aside, and it just kind of happened organically, because they saw the impact that the chat session was having, and they just mentioned, like, hey, this year can you make sure, Mike Vick or Aaron Brooks or Ty Kelly, whoever may have been up there, can they make sure they hit on this theme or whatever?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that, because, like you said, it's more than just football, So it's making sure that you're touching those subjects that are going to last a little bit longer than football or have a deeper impact than football, and hearing it from role models and people like that, it's gonna strike differently. And hearing it from your parents who are saying the same thing every day. I know that my dad was a teacher, so hearing academic stuff from him all the time was like, yeah. But after a while, it's like, same thing, and then hear the same thing from someone else. It's like, oh you're right.
Oh, I never thought about this. I never heard this before.
Never thought about it. You're right.
Like, I should study. Like,
if I do my homework several days before, I have a better result instead of staying up all night.
Nah, he's like, my dad should tell me that.
My parents don't tell me this.
It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Like, man, this is magical information. I got the secret. I'm practical.
It takes a village, right? That's what they say. It takes a village.
It's funny on that, like, especially in college, like, you always start, hey, go get to know your professors, like, before, like, go to the office even before you need anything. Like, that's one of those things that people talk about often, but, a lot of students don't do that. They'll wait until,
they need extra credit.
Yeah,
they need the extra credit.
What can I do? It's like, you're in my class? Like, I've never seen it. But yeah, like, those are some little tidbits on, trying to be better and differentiate.
Yeah.
Sit at the front of the class. Right?
Yeah.
That's a basic, thing. Sit, and again, even in high school, sit at the front of the class and not be distracted sitting in the back. Like, these are all, I know there's a lot of virtual things now, but like all these little things that are tried and true methods. Because an instructor looks like, oh, okay, Bensky's, at least seems like he's paying attention. Eat him, okay, I can, he'll ask it. Even if maybe you're not doing all the homework, maybe your projects aren't where they need to be, but at least you're trying, and there's some effort that's there that give you the benefit of the doubt.
That's the advice.
Food
Sit in
for
front of
thought,
the
yo.
class.
Food for thought.
Go check out your professor. No, that's a hack too. I didn't really implement that until like now, taking them more like graduate level classes and stuff. Where it's like, get cool with the professor. Like, I'll help out with the grades. So
now, again, we talked about some things becoming natural. That was a natural thing for me. Like, And again, sometimes, depending on personality, I probably over-indexed on trying to use personality and really get to know some of my teachers as opposed to actually doing the level of work that really should have been done. Miss, so-and-so, I need a little bit more time. Like, I try to finesse probably a little bit more than actually doing the work. Like, I should just did it within the time frame.
Should have just did the work, for sure. All right, that's awesome. So that will wrap up segment 1. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll hop into segment 2 to do the quote of the day. We'll get a nice duo, and then we'll do the last segment, talk more about the marathon fund.
All right.
On segment 2, ready for that quote of the day. Edom said he got a good one. I'm not allowed to guess. What we got?
All right. It is, you can dream, but don't neglect the execution.
Ooh.
Who said that?
I don't know that.
You can dream, but don't neglect the execution. So, in a rap song.
Sounds like a bar.
Yeah. Actually, the singer sang it, but I don't know her name. But you guys probably know the rapper. From, I wouldn't say
from Miami?
No, he's from Charlotte.
Baby?
No. From not Charlotte. Sorry, North Carolina. I keep not Charlotte, North Carolina. I just said don't guess. I said don't guess.
I thought we were guessing.
Guess. You could guess. He couldn't guess. Yeah, bro. Come on. I messed up Charlotte and North Carolina. That's
because it had me stuck. So I was like, I don't know it.
Right.
I was like,
right, because I'm going through. I'm like, the only next person I was gonna say either Petey Pablo or J. Cole. But
did J. Cole? I was trying to work a bit around, but yeah, J. Cole. It was his song "Changes" off of "For Your Eyes Only."
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just part of the hook. It said, you can dream, but don't neglect the execution," and it was really funny that was supposed to be the first quote, but then I switched it when we first recorded. But
No, here we are.
Kept talking about execution. I'm like, I gotta use this one.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm all about that. Like we were talking before, in terms of implementation, execution consistently. So I'm all about that.
Yeah, the quote kind of speaks for itself. So can you say it one more time?
You can dream, but don't neglect the execution. So don't sit there chatting with your boys.
Yeah, everyone has good ideas, or a lot of people, let's say, have a lot of people have a lot of good ideas, but it's that execution to see it through. That's that.
And then it's another. People talk about don't talk about it, but be about it.
Yeah.
Similar mindset around dreaming versus executing on. Yeah, a lot of people talk about what they're going to do, but be the person that actually goes out and do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would just also say, and we kind of talked about this before. I mean, just on the same thing with the quote. You don't have to broadcast like all of your moves.
Yeah.
Like. Again, there's marketing and sales, which we all have to do. I don't care who are entrepreneurs, whatever. You got something, and there's a level of marketing and promotion that you have to do. But I think oftentimes I'm seeing people over-index on a lot of the talking, promotion, social media posting. I got this, and it's like, it's okay to move in silence.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
There's no shame in that.
No shame. Real G's moving silence like lasagna. That's a bar.
I think Meek Mill said that.
Yeah, I think it was Meek Mill.
I think he said something about moving in silence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was his bar.
Oh yeah, that's for real. Like social media, everybody first thing to do is whip their phone out.
Because like you said, I think you said the last episode, you're like, there are a lot of people making moves who aren't posting up on social media. And that's one, I guess, one of the dangerous parts of it today, especially like you said with marketing. Like, people who are always like, post, you have to post your content, this, that, and the third. And it's good to do that, but you have to make sure you're doing things behind the scenes too, because that's where the actual business is. Like that's the tangible stuff, When we do episodes like this, when we're going to pop-up shops, like that's the actual podcast.
Right.
The posting on social media is more for everyone just to see it, right? But like this here today, like this is the actual like work, you know what I'm saying? So it's making sure that like you're focusing on that part, and then more social media is, kind of say, that's more the marketing side, and that's more like, hey, everybody, go follow us.
But yeah, I mean, even as creators, right? You guys are creators. I mean, you still have the work. You got to research on like who's going to be your guests and how you're positioning which guests and what is the theme and messages you're trying to get out. I mean, you're prepping with questions. I mean, that's the work. Like that's the real work. The end result is what ends up getting
exactly
posted. And yes, you obviously want to post that and promote it and things of that nature. But there's a lot of prep that goes in. You're not showing up, plugging the equipment in. Like there's some technical things you gotta understand. Like what's the right equipment? Like there's a lot of work that goes into that, even in being a creator. But I think from my perspective, and again, it's not an old school, new school thing. It's very much
it's just work.
There are a lot of, I know, entrepreneurs, and I get to see a lot of deal flow that are heads down executing, and you wouldn't even know it, right? And they're tweeting and some other social media things, but they're just not over-indexing on it. So that's just something else I would, which again gets to the execution quote, that you're not over-indexing on whatever you're doing every single day and not doing the real work behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure.
So to wrap one more time, quote is, "You can dream, but don't neglect the execution," off of Changes by J. Cole.
Let's do it. All right, we still doing duo?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, so dynamic duo.
This is a new segment for you guys.
New segment for you guys. We all have
Everybody's watching like, why did they all pause?
Yeah.
There's a story behind it. All right.
Yes. So last time we did this, we introduced a new segment for dynamic duo. Everybody gives two people or two items that they feel are a big staple in their life or in society, and then they give a reason why. Mine is Frog and Toad from the book, the children's book. Growing up, I always read the books, always had them at home, and Frog and Toad, they're just best friends. They always did everything together. No matter what the other did, they still came back and turned it around and kept it pushing. So I thought their adventures were cute and inspiring. So
Dynamic duo. All right.
Yeah, mine was
the best one.
Mine was peanut butter and jelly, right? So it stays consistent, right? It doesn't really switch up on you. I've been eating peanut butter and jelly since a kid. It's a great mesh that goes right, goes right with each other. Nothing really too deep about it. You could probably make something a little bit deep about peanut butter and
what
jelly.
What kind of bread though? Is it certain bread? Is it white bread only? Is it wheat?
See, I grew up on wheat bread, and then once I got a little dollar, I got a couple of dollars, right? Now I'm doing white bread or potato bread. You know what I'm saying? We eating good over here, so it's way better on potato bread than on wheat bread, bro. Wheat bread is like
wheat is so dry. You're not helping yourself. You get stuck on the peanut butter and then.
So give me some nice like potato bread or white bread, right? Peanut butter and jelly, put one on each side, put it together. It's a great staple food, right? It's a great snack. I'm pretty sure it's healthy for you. Peanut butter is good for you. I don't know about jelly. It's grape, right? Grape jelly.
It's been a while since I've had a PB&J, but I may have to.
You might have to dip back. Just dip back into it. Just do it.
Just make it right. Then go get a pan, put butter on the pan, let it melt, and then put it on each side.
Oh, he really taking it off. Okay.
That's that gourmet. That's that gourmet.
So good.
That's a hack right there. All right.
You're going to do that, and you're going to remember us. You're going to be like, everybody does eat,
yeah,
right? You're going to be like, everybody does eat.
That's what you do right there.
It's good.
For sure.
As a new flavor.
And then your duo. Yours was good. Yours was that.
I went in a very different direction. Because, we talked about influences, again, whether it's children's story or food. For me, just reading the autobiography of Malcolm X was a big deal for me when I was an undergrad. So my dynamic duo is Malcolm X and Alex Haley, because that book, the autobiography, was just so instrumental, and a lot of friends just opened our mind to really understanding El Hajj Malik El Shabaz's story and transition and civil rights and human rights and community building. So for me, the dynamic duo is Malcolm X and Alex Haley.
Sure. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into segment, technically 4, but let's jump into this last segment. Let's talk more about this marathon fund, right? So venture capital, VC. I know this is fairly new. Can you let us know kind of like, we'll start about like, again, how you started it, what's it about, and then we can kind of talk more about the details and how entrepreneurs can learn about that.
Yeah, so I think in the world of entrepreneurship, right, you need financing, and some people get loans from a bank, depending on the type of business you have. Normally, if you got contracts, you may get a bank loan to provide working capital. In venture capital, it's more what we call sort of risk capital, and so you're investing in entrepreneurs, and you're working with them over a period of time, it is high risk for investors because we may not get that capital back. There's no collateral. But within venture capital, we are investing in high growth entrepreneurs and startups and companies that have an opportunity to scale significantly. We are primarily focusing for Marathon Fund to invest in early stage underrepresented entrepreneurs, so Black, Latinx, women, disabled, LGBTQ, and veteran entrepreneurs. And typically we're investing in tech or tech-enabled companies.
Okay.
Right, so it's not leading with the tech, but it's the solution that they're providing that may be tech or tech-enabled. And that might include ed tech, fintech, digital media, healthcare, gov tech, and real estate tech. And so we are raising our first fund for Marathon Fund, but through some of our investors, we are actually deploying capital and investing in various companies. We've invested in a voice AI company. We've got another fintech company that takes prepaid and unused cellular airtime and converts it into digital currency. And what we found is that particularly in Africa and Latin America, there's a large population of unbanked and underbanked, but everybody has a smartphone. So with your smartphone, if you're able to have digital currency to transact business, we found that to be a compelling business model for the company we invested in. And then we're about to invest in a virtual reality company that focuses on neurodiverse K-12 learners with autism and ADHD. So that's a metaverse play for us. So that's an example of some of the companies. And there's some other things we're doing around Web3, metaverse, things that are coming down the line around innovation, esports, gaming, and esports, and STEM-related stuff.
Got it. So, few questions.
Wide range of things. Well,
within
within tech, but still wide range.
I mean, there's some things we won't do, like CPG, consumer product good companies. We've seen some amazing founders that have done some great things, but our track record of success, my two partners, Dwayne McKnight and Christina Francis, we just haven't done a lot of CPG deals. So but ed tech, digital media, fintech, like we can advise and bring more value in that space. Like biotech, we're not doing biotech. Restaurants, we're not. So there are some things we're not. We just pass on.
I would assume, what's it called? Target market is probably important too. Kind of like sticking to one at first. Is this the same as angel investing?
So great question. So when you look at sort of the pathway for a startup, like typically you want to get your friends and family to invest in your idea, right? To like launch it. So after friends and family, then you want to get angel investors to now help prove out whatever your model is. Maybe hire some additional people. Maybe it's building out whatever the solution is, and then. So the institutional round is venture capital. So although we're early stage investors, pre-seed and seed, in some cases we may be co-investing with angels, again, depending on the level of the company's traction, but that's typically the path. Friends and family, angel investors, early VCs, and then growth stage venture capital firms like the Andreessen Horowitz of the world, the big ones you hear that are investing like hundreds of millions of dollars into a round. But we're early stage. We're in that. We're trying to be some of those early checks.
Got it. Where are you, I guess, marketing? Like, where are you finding like these entrepreneurs? Is it just in? I know you said you're located around the DC area, right? So like, is it just locally, or is it like anybody in the world, country, whatever, who has a good idea?
So we are U.S. focused. We have we're national in scope, but the DMV, sort of mid-Atlantic, is where we think like most of our deal flows is coming from. So from New York, kind of Miami, Atlanta. Again, having said that, it's really our referral network at the end of the day. I mean, we've been around, we've got great relationships, with law firms, other entrepreneurs, other investors at different stages of investing that maybe there's a company or entrepreneur that it's too early for them, but fits our time horizon. But our referral network is the biggest one. Our relationships with universities is really the biggest source of deal flow.
You went university, so it's students?
Oh yeah, we definitely. We've got great relationships, again, especially in the DMV with all the local universities in the DMV, and even in Baltimore. We've got really good relationships with Harvard Business School, Alumni Angels of New York in particular. We just did a startup showcase with them. So we've definitely got university relationships and referrals that may come out of either School of Business or the engineering department. But yeah, we definitely, I mean, we look at those university partnerships and the pipeline for those students with amazing ideas and seeing the world in different ways, solving problems. So yeah, absolutely. And we haven't funded any student-run businesses because most of them are probably going to be a little early, but we're open to that and having that dialogue and understanding where there's opportunities.
If you got the idea and you can execute, we're here for it, right?
That's right.
Did you ever think about, I mean, you all know about Shark Tank or anything, but did you ever think about throwing something in a university Shark Tank-esque or?
Not. So I'm a judge on a lot of pitch competitions.
That was my next question too.
Oh,
That's
right.
crazy.
It's crazy. We didn't even talk about that.
So I've judged a lot of pitch competitions. So a similar sort of Shark Tank, and I mean, there's other investors, other VCs that host pitch competitions. There are accelerators and incubators that host, like when they have their cohort. Yeah. So I've done that a lot of that. I've essentially been a judge. So it's similar to a Shark Tank type environment, or demo days is another thing hear about. So yeah, I've participated, and I've met a lot of interesting companies that, again, timing wise, some end up pivoting and becoming something else. But yeah, to answer the question, I've participated, but we don't. Other than the startup showcase we recently held in partnership, which was virtual, we had 6 amazing women, 6 amazing founders that happen to be women of color, which was virtual. And we had a number of, 5 incredible sisters and 1 Latina, great companies. Thinking they're all going to be hugely successful. So that is something we've done, but that's probably the only time we'll sort of partner or sponsor, something like that.
I love it. What would you say, what qualities are you looking for in a founder or an entrepreneur that makes you think ooh, this is a company or a person I can get behind?
Yeah, for us, it's decision-making is probably the number one. So when you're doing early stage investing, there's not going to be a lot of numbers and traction, right? I mean, there may be some you've got a minimum viable product. The entrepreneur should at least be at that stage, have demonstrated some level of product market fit. But in those early days, I mean, you could talk to some customers, whether it's in a B2B model or B2C model, you can kind of look at some of that. But we really focus on the founder. And, we've actually got a whole criteria. We actually rate our founders. Like if we get to the point of doing real due diligence, internally, we actually rate them across this 9 criteria of 9 categories. But decision-making is the number one. What kind of decisions do you make as we get to know them? You will find some investors that probably invest quicker than us, but we like to take a little bit more time to get to know the entrepreneur, and vice versa, right? So they understand our style, kind of what our expectations are.
What step do you find people fail at the most outside of business? Decision-making?
I think this coachability. So
that's the hardest here?
It's amazing how many, I think, entrepreneurs that are brilliant, smart, they've got an amazing idea, they start assembling a team, but they're not really coachable. And so for us, we'll pass on that. And again, we want entrepreneurs to be supremely confident, right? But the reality is every business is going to have to pivot. It's going to be something that happens, and you have to, when that fire is burning, are they going to be coachable enough to be able to hear what you're saying in terms of advice? And that's why for us, and again, there are some investors that are not lead investors, but they invest and they're not really that active. And so that's why we take a little bit more time. Hey, can we add value? Because if you're going through an experience or a situation, and you're trying to get to this, you're waiting, maybe you got a client and you're trying to close this deal with, I don't know, Viacom or something like that. Hey, we might know someone there. We could pick up the phone, but you got to pitch it this way and not necessarily your way because we already have insight into their buying decisions. So if an entrepreneur is not coachable that way, and unfortunately, a lot have a way that like they want to do it their way, then that's another area that for us it's not. We'll probably pass on those opportunities.
Humble yourself a little bit.
That's
kind of humble yourself a little bit.
Yeah, they can be supremely, but if you're so focused, like we talk about planning, like, look, we know you have a plan.
Yeah.
But I think it was Mike Tyson that said, everybody has a plan until they get hit.
Yeah.
And that happens. Like that's just part of the entrepreneurial journey. So it's important to be coachable, and in those moments of friction, that they can hear our voice when we're trying to advise them. And again, not that they're going to. We're not saying do everything we say, but are you at least taking that information in?
Yeah.
Or if we introduce you to someone, like, are you coachable to hear what their message is, and can you take that information to make the company better?
Got it. So I was actually going to ask, like, any advice that you had for entrepreneurs who want to grow? Would that be it, being coachable, or do you have anything else that?
Something we talked about before. I mean, it's coaching, but it's also the mentorship aspect of things, and so that might be peer mentoring. That may be advisors, and I kind of categorize. Hey, you have advisors for your company. You got coaches and you've got mentors, and they can look and feel in different ways. Maybe it's industry expertise. Maybe it's just someone that kind of truly sees you when, like, they know you. They know who you are at your core. Yeah. And there's some mentors, and they're going to give it to you straight, like, you're bullshit. Like, you're saying this, but I know you, and you're capable of more of that. Like, you need someone, to check you at times, or like Bensky, like, look, man, you're holding back. Like, why? Why are you holding back? So we all need those coaches and mentors, and God has blessed me with some amazing mentors, coaches, some formally, some informal, some relationship just happen. So I would say that's definitely the other things. You got to surround yourself with people you can kind of check in with periodically to kind of gauge and validate what you're doing. And if you got the right coach or mentor or advisors, and plural, that it can also save you some time from making repeated mistakes, right? Like, oh wow, they've already walked that path, so let me validate this thing before I spend 2 months doing this thing
for sure. So to kind of wrap it up, do you have any final words of advice, tips, or anything that you want to let our audience know about? It could be about anything we spoke about today or anything on your heart.
Yeah, I think we're just in some interesting times. I think from the pandemic the last couple of years, a lot of things with social and racial injustices, and I think we're all mentally being challenged in different ways. So I would say give yourself grace at times. I think the calibration of sort of pre-pandemic and things of 2020, we're carrying a lot of that. So I'm really on this mental wellness thing, like really, for my mentees, and when I'm checking in with them, and for myself in terms of like self-care, and make sure I'm taking time to recalibrate how I did things sort of before March 20 to now. And so I would just encourage everyone, I don't care how old you are, if you need, if it's therapy or a counselor, confiding in friends, just, be a little more vulnerable from that standpoint, and make sure you're calibrating that part of get your grind. Don't get me wrong, put the work in, but also make sure, try and be in tune with from a self-care standpoint and that mental wellness, because I just think that, and there might be another wave coming out. So I think we've got to all adjust and give ourselves a little bit of grace from that standpoint.
Sure. I love it. I think that's a great way to end it.
How can the people find you?
Actually,
wait. We do need a song. You're right.
Oh, that's right. The song. Yes, that's right.
New song. Last time we said Biggie, so I think we need something.
We got Biggie
man.
You want to listen to any music on the way down here?
Actually, I was on the phone and
got it.
Biggie's always my go-to. I did mention it because I want to give him a shout out. Ray Wimley.
You did say that.
Because he freestyles. I met him in New Orleans a couple of years ago. I mean, off the top of the head, he can just pick anything. Wimley's Ray, R-A-Y, Wimley, W-I-M-L-E-Y. Just real dynamic dude. And when I see him, and he's posting on Instagram. And, he's just really good and inspiring. So I like him. Good young brother. So yes, Biggie is my go-to. I should have thought about. Oh man, I'm trying to think.
10 Crack Commandments.
Oh, definitely. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm definitely hip hop is usually a big driver for me. I know this may sound strange, but a couple of songs I've been hearing lately, and this artist keeps popping up, is Moneybagg Yo. Like, like I will like. There's been some. I'm like,
Lala. I'm already hearing Lala.
Yeah, I'm like, who is it? Okay, I like that. Okay, I like that rhythm. Okay, that's a good. Yeah, so that's probably someone.
Gangsta's Pain.
Like, I'm like, okay, what? All right. Yeah, that's probably a more recent.
Moneybagg. Throw them on the playlist.
You'd be the first one with Moneybagg, and we got.
We're making a playlist with the different suggestions from our guests. Yeah. So we'll throw it on there.
Yeah. He's definitely recently. I'm like, oh man, he keeps popping up on the features or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, kind of nodding the head.
Yeah.
All
right. Like, okay, I can get used to this. For sure. How can they reach you?
Instagram and Twitter is at vlee21, VLEE21, and LinkedIn, just put in Vernon Lee. And what I will say, if anyone reaches out on LinkedIn, because I'll admit, trying to manage all this email and phone calls and all that, but if anyone reaches out on LinkedIn, if they actually just mention in the connection request that they saw this show, that would be helpful for me to kind of calibrate a little bit, so I can. Because I just get a lot of inbound. It's hard to.
It's like, who you
So they should meet. Please mention this show.
Everybody eats show.
Like and comment, subscribe before you even try to message them. Use our name.
Absolutely. But I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That would be the easiest.
For sure. So, as we conclude, thank you again. This is part 2. I think this is better than last time.
Yeah, definitely.
That was good.
So for sure, thank you again for taking your time out. You drove. We had the episode right here in the hotel workroom or this meeting room. Right, we make it happen. We'll make it happen wherever it's at. I said, hey, we got the equipment. We just need the location. Right. So thank you again for taking your time out. Thank you again for that insight, for that knowledge. For anybody listening to this, make sure you're following us on all platforms. Instagram at Everybody Eats Show, TikTok at Everybody Eats Show, and our YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on YouTube, Everybody Eats Show. And make sure you're following, subscribe on anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen. Make sure you subscribe, share, comment, leave a review, all that great stuff. Help us get ranked.
Tax season is over, but our tax class is still out, so go check that out.
Mm-hmm. Right. If you had to file an extension, you still got a little bit of time, so you can still watch and catch that information. And obviously, it's good to always know that information. So be on the lookout for that, and we'll see you guys next week.
And if I could just mention Hampton Roads Youth Foundation, anyone to follow HRYF 757. So we got some cool stuff coming up in July, a bowling party event. Some things that the public can come out to in addition to the camp. So at HRYF 757, check us out.
All right, for sure. So that's it for today's show. See you guys. Peace.